the extra deck, so I'll do that very quickly. I have Ancient Gear Howitzer in here because it's one of those few cards that's unaffected by all other card effects in the entire game. Um, and once per turn, I can inflict 1000 damage to my opponent. And if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, I can special summon one Ancient Gear monster from my deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, which is pretty nice. I have Ancient Gear. I have Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Chaos Ancient Gear Giant must be fusion summoned, and is unaffected by spell and trap effects. And unlike Ancient Gears, which normally have the clause that your opponent can't activate a spell or trap card when this card occurs in attack, this one says that, no, during the battle phase. This one says during the battle phase, your opponent can activate monster effects, which is even crazier. Can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, and with 4,500 attack, that's terrifying. If this card attacks the defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. This is absolutely a unit of a monster, just horrifying. It outlets the Mad Golden Lad because why not have access to him? He's pretty powerful. 3,800 attack, 3,500 defense, level 10. Easy access to rank 10. Can tribute other zombies, including himself, to take over permanently other opponent's monsters. And is also cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. So, Badass Zombie Dragon Lord is a zombie reborn during my opponent's turn. During their main phase, I can revive one zombie from my graveyard, and if it is in the graveyard itself, I can banish one other zombie I control that's supposed to summon him from the grave. The zombie vampire cannot be targeted by the effects of monsters that were not special summoned from the graveyard. Um, when it gets Exceed summoned, I can I can discard one material to send the top four cards of each person's deck to the graveyard, and then special summon one monster from the graveyard out of the monsters that may have been sent by this card's effect. And with this zombie and with I don't have them in here dump here, but with a handful, I think only three of the four Exceeds vampire monsters. Most Exceeds monsters have to have two or more monsters of the same level to uh, Exceed summon them. But with vampire Exceeds monsters, they only require that both the monsters be monsters that your opponent controls. And if they are both monsters that your opponent did control, but now you control, then it doesn't matter what level they are. They just have to be the monsters your opponent controls. And you can exceed summon using those monsters regardless of the level, which is really badass. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max is a really cool Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. Because you see, with Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, you can you can detach one material from Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, and then put 2,000 damage to your opponent. And what I love about this Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max is that Super Dread Cannon Rail Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max can be Exceed summoned using two outlets or any two level 10 monsters on your field during your main phase 2 after you've already done a massive amount of damage with other cards. That way, once Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max hits the field, then you can just have Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. You can have that Number 35, Ravenous Tarantula. This card increases the attack and defense of all of my monsters equal to the difference between my life points and my opponent's life points. I can also destroy all monsters my opponent controls that have less attack than this card once per turn. Now here's the terrifying thing. Number 20, Utopic Dark Infinity, can increase my life points equal to the original attack of one special summoned monster once per turn that I control. One special summoned monster that has 3800 attack. So you mean to tell me that I can get half my life points back every turn with these guys? And then every turn increase my attack and defense by half my life points at almost 4,000 every turn? My dog is dreaming. I have Vampire Sucker in here to take care of uh, drawing me extra cards. With Vampire Sucker, I can target one monster in my opponent's graveyard, special summon it to their field in defense position as a zombie. When I do, I then get to draw one card. And that's because if a monster is special summoned from the graveyard to the field, and it's a zombie, I get to draw one card, only once per turn. Which means that I get to proc this drawing of the card whenever my Doom King Bala drops special summons. Now what's cool about Vampire Sucker and Doom King Bala drops is that if your opponent is using Vampire Sucker and you have Doom King Bala drops, your opponent can use the effect to revive a monster from your graveyard and turn it into a zombie. And right after they do that, when they go to draw the card, you use your Doom King to negate the effect for them to draw that card. And at that point, essentially, they revived your monster for free, and they don't get to draw that card. I found that out one day because I realized that it special summoning the monster from the graveyard and it drawing a card because of that are two separate effects. And because they're two separate effects, it means that Doom King can negate the effect about them drawing a card while allowing the effect about them special summoning one of my monsters from the graveyard and turning it into a zombie, which I already want because I'm running a zombie deck. So, in case you get into a zombie mirror match and they're using Vampire Sucker and you happen to have Doom King on the field, that's what you can do with that. I have 2 copies of Avenged Savior because it's an excellent searcher for my zombie deck. Whenever I attack with it once per turn, I can send one zombie monster from my deck to the graveyard as a cost. And then when I do, I can decrease my opponent's attack by the level of the monster sent times 200. And the effect is the attack decrease. The cost is sending the zombie to the graveyard from my deck. But because the effect that I want is sending the zombie from the graveyard from the deck to the graveyard, I will always use that ability whenever I can. And the interesting thing is that if there's an effect that says negate this monster's effect, and you apply that to Avenged Savior, he can get into a fight and still send a zombie monster to the graveyard, because sending the zombie to the graveyard is not the effect, it is the cost for the effect. And so because it is the cost for the effect, that means that it is not the effect, so it does not get negated. The effect of decreasing your opponent's attack for the battle is what gets negated whenever you negate this card's entire effect. Now, if you had a card that prevented this effect from even activating, that's different. But negating the effect will not prevent it from being able to activate. I have one copy of Ancient Gear Ballista. If this card is link summoned, you can add one Ancient Gear monster or one Gear Town from your deck to your hand. Excellent. It's a searcher for my entire Ancient Gear deck, essentially. I can target one spell trap card I control and one face-up monster my opponent controls. Destroy that card you control, and if you do, change that monster's attack and defense to 0 until the end of this turn. Nice. Vampire Fascinator I have in this extra deck because it only requires 3 zombie monsters, or 3 monsters including a zombie, so I can get it out with 2 non-zombie monsters, which again plays into that using vampires using opponent's monsters deal. If this card is link summoned, I can target one monster in my opponent's graveyard and special summon it to my field in defense position. Also, I cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except zombie monsters. Then, I can tribute one vampire monster, then target one monster my opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase. The idea here is to use this card to gain control of 2 different monsters your opponent controls, one from their graveyard and one from their field, and then use those 2 monsters to go into a Vampire Exceed summon. That's the idea. But what I end up doing is I usually will end up using this card to take one monster from their graveyard, then to take a key monster from their side of the field they need, use both to go into something like Avenged Savior or Vampire Sucker, or even the Zombie Vampire. So there's that. Yuki Onna, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi, I only have in here because she can negate the activated effects of my opponent's banished monsters, efficiently nullifying the banished area, which is pretty cool. And if a monster is special summoned from the graveyard or a monster effect is activated in the graveyard, then I can target one other face-up monster on the field, turn its attack to 0, and negate its effects permanently if the attack is changed to 0. And I can use this effect twice per turn, because why not, right? Then I have the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. And she requires 5 effect monsters. And I can also use one monster from my opponent's side of the field to link summon this card if I like to. Meaning I can use 4 of my monsters and one of their monsters, which is pretty cool. If this card is link summoned, I can negate the effect of all face-up monsters my opponent currently controls. This link summoned card is unaffected by my opponent's activated effects unless they target this card. So if a card does not say it targets this card, it just won't affect it. And then on top of that, once per turn, I can, if my opponent activates a card or effect that would special summon a monster from the graveyard, I can negate that effect once per turn, which is pretty cool.